Namaste. The theme of today is joy. And the practice that we're going to learn is the practice of oiling or self-massage with oils. Many, many years ago, I came to this practice when a friend of mine, who is an Ayurvedic practitioner, opened up a shop and began selling her therapeutic Ayurvedic oils. And as soon as I started using oils on my skin, I couldn't believe how wonderful it felt. It felt so wonderful to use an oil rather than a cream on my skin. And then I began using oils not only on my face, but on the whole body. And then I also experimented with different kinds of oils. And through that process, I've really come to appreciate how wonderful it is to use the skin as an organ of detoxification, and to use the skin as an organ to deliver medicines to the body, and how to use the skin as an organ to demonstrate to ourselves, to communicate to ourselves love for our bodies. So it's a wonderful, wonderful practice, and I hope it will spark joy for you. Joy in the relationship that you have with your physical body. So the first thing I want to say is I have an array of oils that I use, which I have come to over the years. I don't recommend buying oils when you first start, because really you can start with olive oil or coconut oil or an unrefined, not toasted sesame oil. Your cooking oils, if they're good enough for your digestive system, they're good enough for the skin. And in fact, your skin absorbs the oil, and any herbs that are infused in the oil will also absorb into your organs. So I recommend starting with the sesame oil. It's warming. I recommend a sesame oil in the wintertime and a coconut oil in the summer. Coconut oil is cooling. And if you happen to be at a stage in your life where maybe you're experiencing menopause and you're noticing the body temperature very warm, even though it's wintertime, you might choose a coconut oil as it's cooling. Once you develop the habit, whether it's once a week or once a month, or maybe once every season, then I recommend investing in some good high quality oils. I use different oils for my body. I use a different oil for my armpit and lymph nodes so that I can massage and release toxins instead of having them drain into the breast tissue. I use a different oil for my face, and so I have several oils. But you can use one oil or two oils, one oil for the body and one oil for the face. So you can see here I have an olive oil. I have a scalp oil, so I'll use a separate oil for my scalp, and this is because I have a friend who creates therapeutic Ayurvedic oils, and she has a hair and scalp oil. It's so wonderful. If I didn't have this friend, I probably would use the same oil that I use for the rest of my body. So olive oil or coconut oil or sesame oil. I have a body oil. I prefer a body oil that has essential oils in it. So this one has ylang ylang, geranium, orange, and a few others. Ayurvedic oils tend to be a little more medicinal, and the smells don't tend to be as aromatic or fragrant. So if you go with the Ayurvedic body oil, it might not be pleasant smelling because it's designed actually to deliver medicines. So that's why when I use a body oil, even a simple oil with the essential oil of lavender is something that I would tend to buy and use. As I mentioned, I have a face oil. Again, this was given to me by my friend who develops Ayurvedic aromatherapy oils. So there are some very good face oils on the market that you can get, and they often are scented with frankincense or rose geranium or lavender, and they're wonderful for the face. I highly recommend a face oil. I mentioned to you that I use a specific oil for my armpit and lymph nodes. And this one, somebody gave this to me, my naturopathic doctor gave it to me to try. It's actually a breast oil, and it's for nursing mothers, which I'm not a nursing mother. However, the ingredients are basically castor oil and some essential oils that stimulate the tissue. And I like to use castor oil. It's a purgative, so it really helps to draw out toxins from the body. And if you use castor oil, you should use it in small amounts. It's very viscous and sticky, and you want to make sure that your body is used to it before you use a larger amount. And then lastly, I use what's called Nassia oil. And Nassia is a nose oil. You use it inside to soften the tissue on the inside of the nostril and make the nasal passage receptive to prana and the ability to take in nutrients from the air and from life energy and life force that comes in through our breath. So the first thing about oiling, when do you do it? How often should you do it? And what are the ideal and non-ideal times? In Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga, and Ayurveda is the science of longevity and health, oiling is done before showering. And when you shower, you then don't use soap to wash away the oil. You oil the body and then take a warm bath or shower, and the hot water opens up the pores and allows the oil to soak in more deeply. Now, sometimes I use oiling before my shower. Sometimes I do oiling after my shower. It really depends on the cleanliness of my skin and body. If I've been sweating and I'm sweaty and dirty, maybe from walking and being outside with the air pollution, then I'm probably going to take a shower with soap and then oil my body after. If I've been home all day and I haven't been sweating and I'm feeling clean and I want to take a shower before bedtime, then I'll probably choose to oil my body before my shower, to take a warm shower without soap, and then to pat my skin dry and go to sleep. So those are the two ways that you can use oiling, is before showering, which is ideal, or after showering, which is still good and still feels great. So the other benefit to oiling, I mentioned the skin as an organ. The other benefit to oiling is it falls within the practice of self-love and self-care, because you're using your hands, which are connected energetically to your heart, and you're using the sense of touch, which communicates to the nervous system, and you are practicing self-love. Your heart is communicating through your hands, through your skin, to the nervous system. And there is no other practice that falls so beautifully under the rubric of self-love and self-care. So when you do this practice, it's not a practice to be done. It's a practice really to use it as an opportunity to touch your body, touch your skin, feel your body, know your body, love your body, and love each part of your body. Your feet, get to know your feet and your toes. Not only how they look, how they feel, how your muscle tissue feels. Using your hands and fingers to touch your tissue and speak in a non-verbal way. It is so therapeutic to be touched. And yet, so few of us really take the opportunity to spend time touching our bodies. to touch our feet, to touch our legs, to touch and rub our knees, to touch our armpits, to massage our breast tissue. These are all so important in developing a different relationship with our body that is often based on appearance and sometimes shame or guilt. This is really a practice to shift the relationship of criticism, of shame, and really develop a loving, affectionate, tender relationship that's not at an intellectual idea level, but it is at the level of feeling and being. So the attitude is so important when you do this practice. How it's done. You start with your feet. You massage your feet with oil. You massage your toes. You massage your heel, your toe mound. And how much time do you spend is really up to you. Sometimes I spend a couple of minutes on my feet. And then I begin to oil the rest of my body. So you start with your feet. And if you're not used to touching your feet, sometimes there's parts of our body that we feel grossed out by, or we feel we have a relationship of judgment towards our body. And this really brings up to the surface how we relate to not our bodies as a whole, but the individual parts of our body. Our feet are important. Our feet are important for our posture. They're important for our body. And they're an important part of the whole of us. And so to get comfortable touching your feet and seeing your toes and loving all of it, even the dry, icky bits. So you start with your feet and toes. And then the pattern is circles around the joints and long strokes upward towards the heart. So you massage your feet, circles around the ankles, long strokes in the calf muscle up to the knee, circling around the knee, long strokes upward towards your groin, long strokes upward, up of your torso towards your heart, long strokes from your wrist to the shoulder, circles around your joints, wrist joint, elbow joint, shoulder joint. And really important is the armpit and breast tissue area. And it's so interesting in our culture, our relationship with our breast tissue. It is a place where a lot of the lymph nodes drain into. And so important is that there's not stagnancy energetically or physically in the lymph nodes, so that we aren't putting ourselves at risk for diseases like breast cancer, which often start in the lymph nodes because the lymph nodes are a little too stagnant or they've accumulated too much. And the lymph nodes are stimulated through this light touch, which is why self-massage and why dry brushing is so helpful for the lymphatic system, which is one of the detoxification systems of the body. So we really want to massage in the armpit area and towards the heart. You can massage all around your breast tissue, important in breast health. So making the massage in the armpit area, and then massaging down the neck and towards the heart in the neck and throat area. And then if you also would like to do the head and scalp massage, you massage your head and scalp. If you'd like to do some kind of face massage, you can massage your face. So that, in a nutshell, is all about the practice of self-massage, the practice of body oiling, and the practice that I hope will stimulate and spark joy. Joy in the sense of having a very different relationship with our body, breaking free of the shame and criticism, and communicating verbally with our hands, touching our bodies like you would touch or massage a baby, having that attitude of reverence towards our bodies and each part of the body. Lastly, we're going to talk about nasya, nose oiling. Now, if there's any part of the body that probably we would get grossed out by, it would be sticking our finger up our nose, which often grosses us out. Really, we need to get comfortable with all of the orifices of the body and all of the orifices being clean. Because some of the orifices of our body, the openings for the body, are also a place where toxins can accumulate and where there's a discharge, whether it's a discharge of mucus at our nose or a discharge of earwax from our ears, or some kind of, for women, vaginal discharge that might come from the tissues being out of balance in terms of the bacteria. So discharge is usually a sign of the body trying to rid itself of some kind of toxin. So it's very important to blow your nose and get rid of the mucus so that the nose and nasal passage is clean. And the nasal passage is a very important vehicle for prana. In yoga, it's said that we take prana in through two orifices. One is the mouth, through the food we eat, and the second is the nose, through the air we breathe. And this is why it's so important to spend time outside of a city and in nature where the air quality is higher, because there's more prana in the air in nature where there's forests and lakes and rivers and earth, compared to a city where there's buildings and pollution and cars and trucks and highways. The quality of prana is so much higher outside of a city. And this is part of the reason why we feel better when we're in nature compared to being in the city. So not only is the prana better, but so important is that this passage, this very important passage that we take in prana, is clean. And not only clean, that it's supple and receptive. What do I mean by supple and receptive? In Ayurveda, it's understood that part of the process of aging is there's this drying out of our tissues. Our tissue loses suppleness and elasticity. So our skin becomes drier, our organs become drier, and our ability, when the organs have a dryness to them, there's less of the ability to absorb and receive nutrients, which is why in many Ayurvedic cooking classes and an Ayurvedic diet, they use a lot of oils, whether it's ghee or sesame oil or coconut oil or olive oil. But oils are a very, very important part of the food because it allows the organ tissue, the digestive tract, and the body tissue to remain supple and receptive, that it can receive and absorb nutrients. So this passage, that it's receptive and supple, is very, very important so that it can receive the nutrients from prana, from the air that we breathe. So you'll also find that you can do a nasya oil, and in the wintertime it's wonderful because wintertime tends to be colder and drier, And in colder, drier climates, our nose and the nasal passage tends to dry out. For people who are susceptible to nosebleeds because of dryness of their nasal passage, it can also be very helpful. And it takes getting over that almost disgust we have for our bodies and shifting it to a real appreciation of the miracle of the body tissue, the miracle of the nasal passage, the miracle of what our bodies do with us without us even thinking about it. So a Nasya oil can be done daily because it only takes a few seconds, or it can be done as part of a oiling practice once a week, once a month, once a season. One more thing. In this retreat, you've been learning, and you will learn, a lot of new self-care practices. It can be a little overwhelming, and the tendency can be to try all of them and try to get all of them right and do them perfectly. Instead, you might want to consider this way of learning. You take the one that's the most resonant and you start to integrate it into your life, whether it's once a week or once a month. And once it becomes a habit, you go back to the retreat resources and you look at what other practice would you like to integrate. So for oiling, the last thing I'd like to mention is consistency and regularity. There are immediate benefits to all wisdom practices. There is an immediate benefit to oiling the skin. Your skin will feel soft. If it has essential oils, it'll smell fragrant. There'll be this nice, your skin will glow. And I should mention, some people who are not used to oiling, the skin might feel greasy at first and it might feel awkward or weird. And this is just because your body is unfamiliar with receiving oils. And the more that you oil your body, the easier it will be for your skin to absorb oil. So you just have to keep practicing, and that response of feeling uncomfortable will probably very likely shift. So now, regularity and consistency. I oil once a week. I do body oiling about once a week. I try to do dry brushing regularly every season. And I do Nasya a couple times a week, and I massage my feet almost every day before bedtime. What I recommend doing is you can choose one part of the practice, massaging your feet. You can choose Nasya oil. You can choose the body oiling. You can choose the breast massage. And making a commitment to practicing it regularly, whether it's on Sundays when you have a day off, whether it's maybe just before or after your menses, so it's once a month, and you get in the habit of taking care of yourself when it's time for your body to release and flush out toxins. Or you can find some other way, but I find it helpful when there's a regularity to the practice. So one thing that I'm going to commit to in the duration of this retreat is to do dry brushing when I have my period. Because when we have our period, we are flushing blood out of the body and flushing the uterus lining out of the body. And in alignment with that, I'm going to practice dry brushing on the days of my period and the few days after to encourage that flushing, not only of blood fluid, but also of lymphatic fluid. So find a way that you can make this practice regular. Find a way that's realistic and stick with it, because the real benefits come when you practice over long term. And that's really when the fruit of the practice is fully revealed. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope so much that this practice will inspire a relationship of joy, that you enjoy your body, you enjoy what your body can do, you appreciate and accept all of your body as it is, and you enjoy your skin and enjoy the sense of touch and the way that our hands can communicate with the rest of our body. Namaste.